Perfect. So this will be available. Hello to those who are watching the recording. For those who just joined, if you can make sure your name at the bottom of your screen has the student org that you are a state officer for, that would be very helpful. Some other things to keep in mind, we do want this to be participation. So please join in, chat in the group and make sure it's to all of us, answering some of those questions if you'd like. Please keep your cameras on. So I know we would love to be in person. It'd be much more fun that way. So the next best step is keeping your cameras on. I do understand if some are in a situation where you can't turn your camera on. So please just message me separately and let me know if you have low internet or something else is going on. But for participation, please keep your cameras on. All right, I am going to let my CTSO managers, if you will please unmute and introduce yourself. And I think Andrew is the first one on my screen.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Good to see you all. My name is Andrew Armstrong and I am the manager for Skills USA.
Teresa
Danielson, and I am the CTSO manager for FCCLA and TSA.
Sorry, I can't get my camera on right now. Cheyenne Gammon, the manager for BPA and FFA.
Awesome. And then we also have Gina Lyman, who is not here right now because she is at the DECA International Career Development Conference, and she is the CTSO manager for DECA and HOSA. So awesome. We have, let's see, 39 of you joining. So thank you. I'm not going to have you all unmute because that would take probably our whole hour. So thank you for being here. We really enjoyed this opportunity to get to know everybody and help you get to know people here as well, so that when we go to our joint student leadership in June, you have a pretty good idea of who you'll be leading with this year. So you'll be doing some breakout sessions, and that'll give you an opportunity to kind of meet some other people, and we'll be doing that every week, and they'll be different every week. So today we are going to talk about the DISC assessment. Great, thank you. One thing we love doing with state officers is giving you an opportunity to learn more leadership skills. That is definitely our responsibility, and helping you be the best leader that you can be and providing you the support that you need. And we pick a book that the whole, everyone from every student org, actually, you know, I just realized you might not all know that there is more than just your CTSO, which is Career Technical Student Organization. So there is 7 in Idaho. You can see on the screen that just about everyone is here except DECA because they are at their national conference. So we have 7 in Idaho. We have BPA, Business Professionals of America. So if you're in BPA, I know we can see your screen, but just do a thumbs up or a wave. That'd be great to see you. Then we have DECA, of course, not here. Let's see, FCCLA. So Family Career Community Leaders of America. We have FFA. Yeah, FFA, awesome. HOSA, Health Professionals, awesome. And Future Health Professionals, HOSA. Then I have to go and make sure I have my alphabets right. Skills USA. That's another one. And then TSA, our Technology Student Association. I don't know, my screen's not big enough to have all you on here, so awesome, welcome. So as student leaders, you will be leading Idaho together in your chapters or in your organizations throughout the year. So giving you some great leadership tips is what we're going to be doing. So with the DISC, we're going to talk about what that looks like for you and how it impacts your leadership and how you can use this to better help your teams this year. So I'm letting some people in still. Any questions for me before we get started? I didn't start with any fast facts or anything. I've been at the state for 9 years now. I've been in this position for about 4 years, so it's been pretty fun. I was the previous FCCLA and DECA manager. You have 5 kids. No shock faces. That's awesome. Normally people are like, why would you do that? Interesting. So, okay, let's get started then. I'm going to share my screen. You should have the handout that Michaela sent you. And we're going to start. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see the PowerPoint? It says Introduction to DISC. Is that working? Perfect. Awesome. Hold on one. All right. So DISC is an assessment that has been widely studied. You'll probably see lots of them on the internet. There's a lot of offshoots of DISC and different people having it. We are using the Rome DISC model. If it matters to you, if you're doing research or if you want to know more, just let me know. And it's very widely researched. It's up there with StrengthsFinder and Myers-Briggs, if you're familiar with any of those. So DISC is an assessment that just gives us a snapshot of how we communicate and how we interact with other people. And it's so important to understand how we interact and talk with and respond to other people. And it's also really important to know that about your teammates too, because it will help you when you're in a situation or in a conversation to understand why they're responding to something you said or did. Okay, so with the Rome DISC model, they have, let's see, okay. Michaela, if you see anyone joining that I'm not seeing because I'm sharing my screen, if you'll let them in, that'd be great. Okay. So they have determined that people fall within these 4 categories. And so we're going to talk more about that. Those who fall in this outgoing. So if you're in this top, this might describe you. So more fast-paced, involved, likes to be involved in activities or in things, team activities, more energetic, more optimistic, positive, and enthusiastic. So if you are in the outgoing one, go ahead and put outgoing in the chat. Whereas those who are on the reserved side are more slower paced, which doesn't mean they're slow. It just means they take their time and detail oriented. Cautious. So why are we doing it? Let's think it through a little bit. Concerned, more patient, steady, and discerning. So discerning is that I'm going to think about this first because I want to make sure we're doing it the right way. So reserved, so outgoing, talk things out. So you like to talk it out, and reserved, like to think it through. So put in the chat which one you fit into, reserved or outgoing. Awesome, awesome. Okay. Perfect. And then they did another segment. So let's look at this one. Oh, wait, sorry. Did I mix this one? Nope. Okay. Outgoing people tend to speak and move with high levels of energy. So if you are someone who talks with your hands, you might be that person. Even their gestures and facial expressions have more movement than more reserved individuals do. So more energy, more movement. Reserved people tend to speak more quietly and less forcefully. Their gestures and facial expressions seem more reserved. So we're going back to reserved than the expressions of outgoing individuals. Okay, so it might be more like if you are, you might talk with your hands a little closer. You may be one that has hands in the pockets. Yeah, so a little more close, doesn't speak as much, maybe doesn't speak as openly in meetings or during class. The reserved people aren't always the ones who raise their hand to answer a question, whereas outgoing people are more the ones that kind of sometimes blurt out the answer. So none of these are better than the other. It's just how we operate as humans. So then we have task-oriented and people-oriented. Okay, so if you are task oriented, you're more about form, function, programs and plans, projects and processes. So it's about, what's the task list? Are we getting this done, this done, this done? Did we think about the budget before we started on this? What do we need in order to accomplish this? How is this going to happen? So there's a more task oriented is getting things done. So here's the rubric. Let's go get it done. Okay. Whereas people oriented people are very relationship focused, sharing and caring, emotions and feelings and friendships. And so people oriented focus on how people feel. So if you are doing an activity in your organization, what it would look like is, so you're going to do your program of work, or I know some different orgs call it different things like program of action, program of leadership. So you're working on an activity. Let's say it's one of your fall events. Okay. Your task-oriented people are going to say, okay, we need to make sure this is done. We need to make sure this is done. Like we need to get the t-shirt designed to Andrew. We need to make sure our, checklist is done. So that's your task-oriented. Whereas your people-oriented, you're gonna be like, okay, what do we need to do to make sure our chapter members are excited? Let's do this activity. Let's put it on social media. You're going to start seeing like, how do people feel? What do people need from us as state officers? And the task oriented is more, let's get things done to make sure that the people oriented people get what they need, right? So let's get these boxes checked off. People oriented are the fun activities and how do we help people enjoy the reason why they're coming and things that they will need while they're there. So thinking about which one you might be, let's do this. Task oriented people tend to focus more on the job getting done and the goals being accomplished. They seem to be easily influenced by other people's opinions. They seem to be easily influenced by the opinions of others. They are more logic-based in their approach. And then people-oriented individuals tend to enjoy the company of others and focus on people as being the priority than the project at hand. They seem to be more influenced, less influenced by the opinions of others and are more sensitive and emotional. I think that's supposed to be more. Sorry, I don't have my, it doesn't come in. Okay, sorry. I think those are backwards. Task-oriented are less focused on people's opinions. People-oriented are more focused on people's opinions. Okay, next one in the chat. Do you think you're task-oriented or people-oriented? Sometimes it depends on the day, right? Sometimes you're like, I just got to get this done. And other days, that might be calling a friend and say, hey, want to go grab coffee for lunch today? Task people. Who else? We got some more in there. Both, yeah. All right. Sometimes both. Yeah. Okay. So here's how the quadrant is dissected. So when we look at, we have task-oriented people are normally our D's and S's, and I'm going to tell you more about that in a little bit. So we have a lot of letters here. Outgoing and task-oriented. Okay, so outgoing is that top piece, right? I'll put my hand up here. So more outgoing, but people-oriented is inspiring. So this is where we get that I from. Outgoing and people-oriented, outgoing and task-oriented on the D. So then if we look at more of the reserved style, we have cautious, so reserved and task-oriented. And then S's are supportive, are more reserved and people-oriented. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but what I want to do is we're going to do a breakout. Let's see. Michaela, do we have the breakouts ready? Do I need a minute? We're going to go into groups, and then we have a couple of questions for you. Okay, so she says 1 second. So while she's working on that, let's have some people share. What are some things that you learned so far? Any ahas? Team, what do you have to add in here just so far? Go ahead, Ethan. Oh, sorry, Chase, I see you too. So Chase, go ahead, and then Ethan, I saw a hand.
I would definitely say I learned a lot more about myself and like why I do the things I do. So that's
Thank you. Thanks for sharing, Ethan.
Yeah, I've learned it's more of like a spectrum between like people and like task oriented or like reserved and more dominant. Like you don't have to necessarily be like on one side completely, but just like somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, thank you. It's a really good point. A lot of times, and this will come out like as you live, like you'll think of things as an adult to be like, oh, and we do have post-secondary in here too. So as an adult, you may have times where you're like, oh, this is something I always believed that's not necessarily true. Okay. And so just kind of going through this, realizing that every single one of these personality traits has big strengths. And we get told a lot of times that we need to be a certain way. Like we see a strong leader and we're like, oh, I need to be just like that. But realizing that that might not be who we are innately. And it's okay to look at what our strengths are and operate fully in those strengths. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and go into breakout rooms. Michaela, if you can turn those on, just click accept and you're going to go into those rooms and then you have a facilitator in there. You should have one, and I will put in the chat the questions that you are going to ask. Awesome. It looks like everyone is back. Will 3 people share something that you learned in this? In your breakouts?
I was able to learn through my group that a lot of people would rather bring everyone together and discuss like a problem rather than just bringing people in as they're needed. It seemed like that last method seemed like a very unpopular one.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Who else? 2 more.
I found that, sorry, I'm just having a bunch of technical difficulties, but we all kind of had similar opinions on a couple of the questions.
Cool. Thank you. 1 more.
I
thought it was really interesting. Oh, go ahead.
No, that's
All
right. James and then Will, I'll let you both go.
All right, sounds good. I got a lot of insightful comments from the people in my group, something that I thought was pretty, almost like this was the answer, and some people gave some thoughts, and I was like, oh, maybe my answer is different. And so I feel like just being in a group answered the questions that groups are better.
All right. Thanks for sharing. Will?
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting that with our group, I mean, we all kind of knew how we would each handle each situation. But a lot of us said it kind of depended on on the situation, right? Like whether we wanted to sit on the couch or whether we wanted to be in a classroom, like it just depended on what we were doing. So I just think it added an interesting dynamic to it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your responses. The funny thing is that these questions are designed as to whether you are people-oriented, reserved, outgoing, or task-oriented. So one of these could have been true for somebody in here that wasn't yours. And so understanding those and understanding the people we work with is really important, because what might sound really fun and awesome to you, someone on your team might not. And you'd be like, oh, well, maybe they don't want to hang out with me, or, oh, maybe they don't care about the details. So understanding how we communicate and why we do things a certain way is important. All right, we're going to talk about the D today. So in your workbook, it's on page 6. There's a spot on there you can take notes. Not everything on these slides is meant to go on that page, so you take notes as what stands out to you. Okay, we're going to move through this really quick, and we'll take a little bit more time on the ISC, and mainly just because I wanted to do the introduction with all of it today, and I don't want to take the full time. So I'm going to cruise through this and make sure if you have any questions, please let me know, but we will be doing a pretty good overview at JSL in June as well. So if you have anything to add in the comments, you can ask me any questions. All right. So D makes up less than 10% of the population. So when we think about the amount of people that we interact with on a day-to-day basis, less than 10% are actually true Ds in this aspect. So I'm going to show you a few things. So D, these are outgoing and task oriented. And just remember, as you're saying these words, they're not all negative. Okay, we're going to talk through some of those. Dominant, so these are what D stands for. Dominant, direct, demanding, decisive, determined, a doer. We're going to go back over I. I'm going to put these up here, but you don't need to take notes on these ones. Okay, so just kind of to show you: inspiring, influencing, impressionable, interactive, impressive, interested in people. Your S's are more reserved, so supportive, stable, steady, sweet, status quo, shy. Where's the presentation? Ah, thank you for telling me that. So my screen isn't showing. Well, thank you. Can you see it now? Thank you. That could have been a really long 15 minutes if no one said anything. Okay, so you can see this up here on the screen. Again, we're going to go back through these for when we do I, S, and C. And then, let's go back over here. C. Cautious, calculating, competent, conscientious, contemplative, so think it through, and careful. Okay, so can give you a snapshot. We're going to do this one today. So we're going to look at the D. Strengths and weaknesses of the D. So this is where if you want to add some things in there, remember that there are going to be people on your team who have some D traits. If it's not you, then it is somebody else. You might have someone who's very D and just has a little bit. And we're going to talk about that as we go through these next 4 weeks. But the strengths of a D. Strengths pushed to an extreme become weaknesses. So just keep that in mind, is that we learn about strengths and weaknesses so that we can better balance our own self. So if you see something on here that you're like, oh, I really want to work on that, or, oh, I didn't realize that that's why people think I'm so sarcastic. Okay, so we'll just talk about that. None of these make anybody better or worse than anybody else. It's just a matter of how we see ourselves, so we can use that as kind of a baseline for who we want to be. So strengths of a D: strong-willed, determined, independent, optimistic, practical, decisive, leader, confident. And weaknesses of a D: they can become angry very quickly. They can come across as cruel. It doesn't mean that they intend to be cruel, but it comes across that way sometimes. I have one daughter who will just kind of say it like it is. And I'm like, well, that was rude. And she's like, why was that rude? I was just saying, like, those pants are too tight, you know, like things like that. It comes across as cruel, but they're not intending it to be. So I just wanted to clarify on that one. Tend to be sarcastic, domineering, inconsiderate, proud, crafty, self-sufficient, and unemotional. Now, this is how people perceive them. Okay. And I'll do the same with the other ones as well, but write down a few takeaways from this before I go to the next one. So then we have, let's see here. We have what we can either call healthy and unhealthy, or when things are going well, you know, when you've had a good day, things have just gone really well, right? Whereas you've had a bad day and you're like, oh my gosh, life was just crazy today, or you responded in a way you didn't want to, or things just didn't go well. And you might have to make some apologies. That's a bad day. So if we're looking at a D who is under control, has a great day, is doing well, is aware of their surroundings, you can find them being courageous, quick to respond, goal-oriented, results-oriented, deliberate, self-confident, direct, self-reliant, straightforward, and competitive. If a D isn't doing so well, maybe it's a bad day, there's some stuff going on in life. So I'll tell you, if you took the test and there was a lot of stress going on, your results might be a little different than if you take it again at another time and life is going pretty well. So like different things like loss of a family member, loss of an animal, disruption in the family, like divorce or moving, getting a new house, those kind of things can kind of skew your results. So if you're looking through what I'm teaching you today and you're like, oh, that really isn't me, or oh, that really is me, it could be because the time that you took that assessment, something was going on that made you respond in a certain way to those questions. So just because this is what your assessment said doesn't pigeonhole you into one thing. Okay. So Out of control would be having a hard time, like things are not going well in life. So an out of control D looks reckless, rude, impatient, pushy, dictatorial, conceited, offensive, arrogant, and abrasive. So if you have a D on your team and this is what has happened, then you can say to yourself, oh, something else is going on. Like then you know that you're doing a health check on your friend and there needs to be something else, like, hey, how are you doing today? Like have some understanding and grace. Any questions on this? Thank you. Thank you. Good thumbs up. I appreciate that. D types can be critical of poorly performed tasks. They might be like, oh, this doesn't happen, or why does it look like this? Okay, Ds, just keep that in mind. You're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't say it like that. Complete amazing amounts of work. So Ds do really get a lot done. May believe that approval and encouragement lead to complacency. So Ds don't always do well at giving compliments. Like, so if you're a D, be sure to make sure you tell your team thank you, or hey, good job on that task. Thank you for doing that. Okay. Don't say it in a way that's like, yeah, thanks, Will. Thanks for getting that done. Okay, that's not actually a compliment, right? Like, thanks, Will, for participating today. I really appreciate it. That's a real compliment. So keep that in mind, Ds. Tend to seek leadership roles. It's really common. Could need to learn to delegate. You can't do it all yourself, even though you want to, and you can. You shouldn't. You have teammates that need to be part of the process, and then might unintentionally intimidate people. D types like activity, bigness, things like all or nothing, baby. Competition, debate. I want to debate it. Whereas other personalities might think that that's arguing. A D is just like, no, we're just debating it. It's not a big deal. So think about that with your teammates. D types like a challenge. Like, oh, you say I can't do it? Watch, I'm going to get this done. Okay. And they like doing things. They're goal oriented, can be intense, not in a bad way, industrious, performance conscious, self-confident, and firm. These are your ones that are like, let's just make a decision. Let's get this done. Okay. Whereas some of the other personality types, you'll learn that later, really want to focus more on why we need to, what do we need to consider? What other things need to happen? Why are we doing it this way? Whereas a D is like, no, we're doing it. Okay. So things to consider. I think I have one more. D types don't like. So as a team member, if you have someone on your team that's a D, think about this. They don't like indecision. They don't like waffling. Remember, they want to make a decision. They don't like talk without action. Don't promise big things and don't follow through. They don't like activities without goals. Why are we doing it? What is the point of this? Okay, so today you're like, what's the point? The point is I want to help you be a better leader. So that's the point of this. They don't like slow activities. Like when something's droning on and on, it's like, hey, can we speed this up? Can we get this done? They don't like unproductive people. Okay, remember it's about the task, not the person. And then they don't like being told what to do. Ds like control and they like to make decisions. So if you have a D and you are the president and Ds don't like being told what to do, for one, Ds, be aware of that. But also as a leader, have choices like, hey, can you help me with this or with this? And then you have a decision and a choice to make. Whereas, hey, Will, Will, you're the first one on my screen, so I'm going to pick on you today. But hey, Will, you need to go do X, Y, and Z. And he's like, don't tell me what to do. Okay. Does it need to be done? Yes. Is he capable of doing it? Yes. But when you have a D on the team, give choices so that it's not just people bossing people around all the time, because no one likes to be bossed around all the time, because it just makes you feel like you're not important and your voice isn't important to be heard. So be aware of those things. Okay. D types want you to be. So when you, as a D, and you're working with people, if you're not a D, think about this. Ds are asking for you to be quick, make a decision, be confident, be productive, be to the point, be specific, and be driven. So knowing that should help you give allowances to other people. So if you are a D, know that not everyone makes a decision very quickly. Some people need to stop and think about it. So a good D as a leader stops and says, hey, I'm going to give you some time to think about that. Do you think you can get back to me by the end of the day? Okay. don't demand it right now, because then you're gonna have expectations that they can't meet, and it's just gonna annoy you as a leader. And then you put them in a position where you're gonna have frustration in a relationship. Okay, so think about these things as a D, as a leader. Okay. That was really quick, and it was a lot. So I need 3 people to tell me something you learned from that. Some takeaways.
Before seeing all that, I didn't really understand many of the flaws of the dominant leadership style. I didn't really know that they could be reckless, dictatorial, and arrogant.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Parker, I saw a hand raised. Is that?
So like since I am like under the D category, I kind of learned that like I see a lot of this stuff in myself. So like just not necessarily learning, but realizing that I need to pay more attention to these things about myself.
Thanks for sharing. Appreciate that. Who else? Ryan?
I learned that there's actually a very small amount of the population are dominant leadership style. I thought it would be more than that.
Yeah. We see it a lot on social media, right? We have a lot of people come across as these big execs, like CEOs running these massive companies, or, you know, making millions, and they all look like they're Ds, but not all of them are. But it does look like that when we look at our leaders. So thanks, Ryan. Aubrey.
I thought it was really cool how dominant personalities sometimes don't like conversations without a goal in mind, but they do like debating and trying to figure out what's the best solution, but without a goal in mind, then it's harder for them to do that. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, thank you. That's a good epiphany. Who else? A couple more.
Go ahead.
No, I see Abby and
sorry.
Rosalind. So Abby, you're off mute. Go ahead and go, and then Rosalind, sorry, you'll be next.
Okay, next time I will get my camera figured out so I can raise hands and everything. But
No, thank you.
I just liked how you capitalized that not all the terms that sound negative they can be positive too, just showing both sides of that.
Yeah, good point. I'm gonna add a little more to that, because in life we have perceptions around us, and we have people and leaders who use words in ways that can either be uplifting or negative. And so it's easy to internalize those as humans, and we put action or tasks to a word that can be positive or negative. So yeah, just thinking about what is positive about that word. Awesome. Rosalind.
I thought it was really interesting I'm personally not a D, but like understanding that I can make a difference of how I approach a situation. It's not on said personality to act a certain way when I can go into a situation and be proactive about it. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. My team. I know Teresa had to, Teresa, you're still on here. I know she had to jump off and run to another meeting. Andrew and Cheyenne, what would you like to add? We've all gone through this teaching a few times as a team.
By paying attention to all of these things that we're about to learn, you know, even just the 5 of us on our team have different personalities, and being able to learn one another's personalities as we go through this is actually, it works pretty well, and you're able to kind of figure out who you're working with and create a pretty good team atmosphere. So I guess not really an aha moment for me, just more of a generalized statement.
Oh, thank you. That was good input.
Yeah, and I can piggyback on that just like Andrew said, it's really good to know what yours is and understand how you best perceive things or hear things or how you're saying it. But also for your teammates to know like that maybe you're saying it one way, they're hearing it another way. And so knowing what their personality type is extremely helpful for building a team. Since we've done it in November, I would say that our team, even at the office, has grown and figured out a lot better as well.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so I know I kind of cut D's short today, but I'll make sure that we come back to it when we're at JSL, and we'll dive into I next time. So as you're looking at your assessment, if you have not turned in your assessment yet, I have a list of about 15 of you. Please, like, you took the assessment and then you got an email that says, hey, here's your assessment. Find that PDF and get that sent over to Michaela as soon as possible, because we are doing an activity on our side to get you ready for JSL so you can get a snapshot of what your team looks like. But what I would like you to do, and for those of you who are watching the recording, please send an email to your CTSO manager with 3 ahas that you learned today about D's. And it could be something you learned about yourself, or it could be something you learned about something you need to do for your team. So 3 things, 3 ahas, please send those to your CTSO manager. We'll talk more about some opportunities for you as an officer this year. And one of them is a micro credential. So you can get a badge if you have those from any of your other classes. You get that as a state officer. And part of that is participating in these events. And so just send them an email with 3 things that you learned today about D's. Could be that what you learned about yourself, what you learned about somebody else, could be how you want to work together on a team. But thank you for participating. I'm going to make sure we cut it off before 5. Before 4 for our people up north. So thank you all. I'm going to hang out for a little bit. If you have any questions for me, I'll be here, but good job. Congratulations on making it to state office. Some of you have been here for a while and some of you just started a week ago. So I'll talk to you more, and have a great night.